Hello. I'm feeling a little, I don't know, motivated to do a little video of my own, and it kind of goes off of the video I did with Hillary and talking about relationships a little bit more. Um, Now that I am 30, going to be 31, and I've dated a few people, been in long-term relationships. I've learned things along the way, and whoever watches this, I just kind of wanted to share my wisdom. We also didn't catch up on our careers, but I'm a school counselor, and Hillary is a teacher. And so with my counseling, I've kind of learned what is, a healthy relationship and what isn't. But even then, when you're in an unhealthy relationship, you kind of tell yourself that those things are normal and that, it just come with the territory and you kind of have to pick your battles. And I used to tell people during that relationship, like, oh, you're so picky, like, don't think about all the negative things, like, there are gonna be things that annoy you and you kind of just have to choose your battles, which is true to some extent, but I think there are things that you can't overlook. And I'm not trying to put down anyone in my past, but there were a couple of people that had anger issues, and at the time I was like, I didn't know what that was. Like, I was kind of like, why are they so angry? Like, why do they react the way that they do? And so I kind of figured out, like, that wasn't normal. It seemed to follow me because in high school, it was there. I didn't date anyone super long to really know what would come of it, but it was present. And by anger, I mean punching walls. When I would go to walk away, if they were angry, they would grab my arm. And there were just little things like that I was just kind of like, like, that's kind of strange, but I didn't think anything of it. And then in my 20s, I was with someone for, I think, 6 years. And, we met in college. And I don't know if he'll ever see this, but I'm not trying to put him down. But there were definitely issues. I think we were in a toxic relationship. And it's hard to talk about because as much as there were good things in our relationship, there were definitely some bad things. When we got in arguments, it got pretty heated, and he definitely had some anger issues. And it wasn't all his fault. It kind of came from his family too. And unfortunately, for the longest time, he would tell me, well, this is just how guys react when they get angry. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I should just deal with it. I should just consider it a flaw of his and just keep going on with life. But there were other things in the relationship too that weren't so great. I think over time we just got comfortable with being with each other, and I know for me, I was scared to leave the relationship because I got to the point where I was like, no other man could possibly find me attractive. Like, he was the one that swooped in when all of my, my dating woes of being 19 and 20, came. He was kind of like the knight in shining armor. And it seemed great at the time. So, I was just kind of like, I will never find a better man. He just has issues. But that's something I've learned is that's not true. Like, there are better people out there for you. You just kind of have to tell yourself that. And so for me, it was really scary leaving that relationship. But it's sad, but after I told him I didn't think we should be together anymore, it was really upsetting. I remember crying, but when I got off the phone with him, that's not how I entirely ended things, but I told him that's how I was feeling. I felt a sense of relief. Like, I think it was a long time coming, and I held on to it for just too long, and I felt a sense of relief. I was like, holy crap. Like, wow. I just felt so relieved. But then it was hard because he wasn't expecting that, and we kind of had this small period of like, are we gonna break up or aren't we? And there was a whole thing with his family that I won't get into, but that didn't help things with our relationship either. Short story, short moral, I guess, of that story, don't live with your in-laws. And it's definitely, I mean, you could have a great relationship with them, but I think living with them changes things. You're no longer in your house, you're in their house. And if they are very set in their ways, that can become a problem because they're used to doing things a certain way, and you have to it's their house, so you kind of have to obey their expectations and their rules. So it just depends on, I guess, the people, but in my experience, it was a bad idea. But at the time, he wanted to move back to his hometown. We had been living in Buffalo, and I went to school in Buffalo, so he kind of came with me. But I ended up not really liking Buffalo. It was just not my place to live. I mean, I like visiting there for sure. It's just, I feel like it's a very hustle bustle kind of city, and I like living near a city. I just don't like living in a city. So I like the calm, relaxed life. I am not all about the hustle and bustle. Let's just put it that way. So, anyway, he wanted to move back to his hometown, and I think just living with his parents, I just felt like I didn't have my own space. Like, the only place that was, ours was our room, and it just wasn't good. So when I decided I needed to apply to every job in New York State, I ended up moving 2 hours away, which was scary because I didn't know anyone there. And a couple of people I knew had connections there, so I ended up kind of, getting to know some people, but for the most part I really didn't know anybody, and that was scary. But if I can give anyone advice too with growing up, it's if you can live on your own, at least for a year, you really get to know yourself. It gives you time to kind of think about what you want in life. And I think when I broke up with my ex, I shouldn't say I broke up with him, but we decided we were gonna not stay together. I think it just gave me time to think about what do I really want in a person, and what didn't work in that last relationship, and what do I want to work in my next relationship. And I think as you get older, you come to a point where you're like, do I want to keep just dating, or do I want to kind of really know where their mind is? Do they see a long-term relationship? Is that something they want? Or are they still kind of I just want to date whoever and nothing serious, and that's the hard thing about dating, is you don't really know what people's intentions are until you get involved. And before I met my husband, there were definitely, not a lot, but there was one person that it just wasn't good. And I was very vulnerable because I was still at the point where I'm like, is anyone really gonna ever love me again? And it's sad that you feel that way from a relationship, but I think I had some rough relationships before my college boyfriend, so he kind of made me feel like it wasn't him telling me that, but I just kind of felt like I'm so lucky because I don't think anyone will ever love me like he does. And that's not really true. So anyway, a lot of things have happened with me in dating. I tell Hillary it's hard because, she has had a much smaller, less experiences than I have, which in some ways I think are good because she hasn't, had any baggage from previous relationships. So with her boyfriend now, I forget how long they've been together for a while. She can probably tell you how long they've been together. It's been years. And in some ways I think it's better that she doesn't have the baggage because she doesn't have any fears that I know of. I just, she doesn't have a lot to base it off of, but at the same time, I think when you start a relationship for the first time, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. But even when you've had relationships and you start a new one, you still don't always know what you're doing. With my husband and I love him dearly. I love him very much. When we first started dating, though, there was a lot of miscommunication, and he's not one to, give out all his feelings and, write love poems and, go the 9 yards. He loves me, and I know that, but he just doesn't express it very well. And so we had a little bit of a communication thing where I was like, do you love me? Like, where do you see this going? Like, we had, a conversation like that. And I think in time he kind of realized, like, I need to make it more well known about how he feels about me. So that kind of just comes with, I think, new relationships, and it just depends on who you're with and everything. But, so yeah, my moral of this whole thing is, I wrote this down so I'd remember. Do not stay in toxic relationships, okay? You might think they're good at the time being. You might feel like you're never going to find anyone else but that person, but that's not true. But it may not be the next day, it might be a couple months, it might be a couple of years. It's okay to be single. It really is. It's hard. It was hard for me. But like I said, when I was living by myself, I learned a lot about myself, who I wanted to be. I think with my ex before George, I tried to be someone that he wanted me to be. He was very religious, and I'm religious too, but our beliefs are somewhat, his is very black and white, we'll just say that. And I'm kind of like, I have a little bit of a gray area in how I believe things. And in our relationship, I felt like I couldn't say that I was in a gray area because he was very like, well, no, these things are black and white. Like, you can't question them. They're black and white. So I felt like I couldn't question anything, like, because at one point that almost led to a breakup. So for most of our relationship, I didn't say anything. That if I disagree with something or I was questioning something in our religion, I couldn't say it because I didn't want to get into a fight with him. With my husband, George, we're both religious, but he's open to me having questions. And he believes that asking more questions kind of strengthens your relationship with our higher power, God. So it's definitely a lot more healthy in this relationship. I feel like I can be myself. While I am religious, we're Christian. I guess we follow Methodist practices, which another thing I'm glad about meeting George is he was a Methodist when I met him, and I finally was like, oh my gosh, this is the denomination I've always wanted. Like, it's just different than being Catholic, and I definitely felt like, okay, like I like how they do things better. But yeah, I feel like I can be myself with George. I can color my hair, and he doesn't care. He's like, all right. I mean, if I dyed my hair green, he might be a little like, what's going on with you? But I feel like I can be myself with him. And yeah, I can ask questions, and I don't feel like I'm shut down. Like, no, like the Bible says this, you must do this. No, he's very like, okay, well, this is what I think, and it's just an open conversation. And so I think that's why our relationship is much healthier. Now, I will say, no relationship is ever perfect. Okay, there are always going to be things that you have to work on. Like I said, in our relationship, there was communication in the beginning. And it can be hard because sometimes in the beginning you question yourself and you don't know how the person feels about you depending on their communication skills. But, we worked it out in the end, and now I kind of know, like, how he is, and he has told me some men just need you to be point blank about things and direct. You can't beat around the bush. You can't hope that they can read your mind. If you don't say it, they may not know, which is very true for him. And still in our relationship, sometimes I'll assume things and he'll assume things, and then we're like, well, we didn't know, and that messes up, it messes up our communication. So just silly things too, like I might assume he remembers, an appointment that we have together, or, we go to the same dentist, something like that. And it's just silly things like that. It's not anything, like, serious, but, So anyway, my point is, no relationship is perfect. You're going to have to work at it. So I don't think anyone is perfect. I definitely think everyone has issues. And going back to my last relationship, I know that I had my own issues too, and I was very insecure when we first started dating too with that person, and I was insecure when I met George too, because I still have baggage from past relationships, thinking that, you know, someone's gonna cheat on me, or they're gonna say that I'm not enough, or like in the past I had boyfriends that were still hung up on somebody. So at one point I was, you know, upset with George, because I just thought, you know, he would want to go back to an ex-girlfriend. I don't want to share too much, that's his privacy, but he had a past girlfriend that did not treat him well, and I knew that that was really upsetting for him, and it took a toll on him. And so in the back of my mind, I'm like, what if he still wants to be with her? Like, you know, what if I'm his second choice? And if you keep thinking that way, it's just not good for your relationship. And I did have to talk to him about it. I mean, for sure, it's not like the feelings just went away. But, you know, it's things that I had to talk to him about. But, you know, I kind of had to get over that. And I know this doesn't have the same meaning for everyone, and this might sound unhealthy to some people. But once we got married, like, I no longer have trust issues. It's weird, but I just feel like we're in a commitment now. And I think when you're dating, for some people, at least for me, it still was like, okay, I know he's committed, but I feel like there's less of a commitment, because, I don't know, there is, but there isn't. It's like you could just walk away. And I think being married, there's a little bit more of a solidified commitment. Like, it's a little bit more difficult than to just walk away. And, you know, you can't run from your problems. Like, you have to work things out. And unless your relationship is horrible, like there's abuse or something, which I think would be a deal breaker for both of us, or cheating. I mean, I think that would be hard for either one of us to overcome. But I think just in marriage, you're kind of forced to work out those problems. Whereas when you're dating, you might be committed to the person, but if there's problems, I think it's easier to just cut and run. I don't know. But, so anyway, I think now that we're married, I'm a lot more trusting of him. I know that he's committed to me, and, you know, he married me for a reason. It wasn't just, I didn't pressure him. It wasn't like, time's a ticking, buddy. It was, you know, we both wanted to be married together, and we knew that we wanted to spend our life together. So, I love him very much. We're hoping to have kids in the next couple of years. Hopefully. It's been a struggle a little bit so far, but we're working things out, so. But, yeah. So, that's my other tips for life. Don't stay in a toxic relationship. And just know that not everyone is perfect, but I think the deal breakers are emotional and physical abuse and cheating. Those are my big deal breakers. And emotional abuse can come in many different ways, and even if someone doesn't hit you, for me it was very close. I didn't get hit, but it was very close, to the point where I asked him to get out of the apartment because I was worried, I was scared. So, again, I'm not trying to throw shade on that person, but it's just been, if I can tell anyone advice, just that person needs to work on their issues. You can't fix them. And for me, it was very mentally tolling. So, yeah. So, that would be my advice. And if you haven't had to deal with all that stuff in your life, I'm very happy for you, because it does take a toll. If you've been with the same person since high school, which I know some people are, I'm sure that had its challenges too. Again, not everyone's perfect. You probably had challenges in your relationship as well, but it's definitely better if you don't have to go through all the hassle. But everything has made me a stronger person. It's made me who I am today, and I feel like now I've been a counselor for, this will be my 5th year. It's definitely kind of guided me in how I want to counsel people, and you know, how I might go about doing my counseling. So, but yeah, So this is very like a heart-to-heart kind of conversation, and I don't know why, but I just kind of felt like, you know, I wanted to kind of expand more on what I said in the last video. So, alrighty. Well, whenever you watch this, I hope you have a great day, and thank you if you watch this. It's a whole 20 minutes. But let's get real, this is a important topic when you grow up too. So, alrighty. Take care. Bye.